Hello, Orchid Addict. Oh, no. Excuse me. I mean bulb addicts of all various colors and sizes. Shapes. Uh, it's me, Leonard. Welcome back to my channel. This is a wonderful, gloomy, doomy, uh, uh, early spring day, and I've decided to finally get along and do the thing that should have been done a long time ago and plant my tulips. So today I'm going to take you on an adventure and show you how it is that I have been taught to do this. Also, sorry for not making, content for a long time. I tend to jump off of the planet for extended periods of time, so bear with me. Hi, I'm back, and look what happened. It started raining outside. So yeah. At least I got this little shelter in my unfinished new house that my family is building. So I'm gonna talk a little about the mix you actually want to be using when planting tulips in pots, as I'm going to do. You may feel free to plant them in your garden, but you need to know that there's a risk that there are going to be certain pests who are going to munch on them. So if your tulips are really precious to you, you might want to plant them in pots. Mine are, because I have a lot of species. And here I have 2 buckets of what is called sand. And you want to have like fine to medium sand, as far as I hear. And we use sand to basically eliminate the probability of rotting and bacteria and fungi. But sand itself, at least when it's wet, is very, very heavy, and it's hard for plants to grow in there, and it also has very little nutrients. So I'm gonna add a bucket of peat to this mix. I might use more, you're gonna know later. It's either 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, I forgot exactly. But you can, decide it yourself. Like this. And then I'm gonna mix it and be back to show you how I'm planting the bulbs themselves. This is not going to be a long tutorial because I'm only gonna, show it on a couple of, actual bulbs. Alright, here you can see I have prepared the pots. They are 15 times 15 and 20 centimeters high pots. Here are some of the details. All you need to know, they're 15 times 15, they're kinda high. Yeah, they're really sturdy, they're quite sturdy. You can see, it's important to have sturdy pots because sand and all of that stuff is very heavy, and you don't want your pots breaking in your hands while you're lifting them. They're narrower on the end, and yeah, this is basically really good, and the square shape is really good for you to be able to organize them neatly. Here I have some round pots, but it's harder to put them all together in the right shape. So I use this sticky paper, and I'm gonna use a waterproof marker to mark the names down on these ones. This year I choose to stick them on top of the actual containers, because last year I had some trouble losing the tags. I still have the names written of the breeds and species down somewhere, but I want to use this one. But if you're going to be taking your plants outside, they might wash off, but then again, waterproof marker. This is the alternative, the plastic label thing. I really like these two, but I just choose those because I don't have a lot of those plastic label-y things. This is how the mix looks like. There are 3 buckets of sand and 1 bucket of peat, in this, and I mixed it together with this small garden shovel so it would be equal consistency. And now I'm going to pick out a bulb and demonstrate to you how I do it. So here I labeled the container with the name of the breed, and here you can see the actual tulip bulbs. These are a bit smaller than what you would receive on average, but the only thing important to know, you should disregard the ones who are squishy and who look suspicious. Like this one is squishy, it's dead, it's sick. You shouldn't allow it to stay in your pot because it might infect all the others. So I put some of the substrate in the container. For tulips, it's like you should have it like, you know, halfway up the pot. And I take this kitchen thing and I just press it down medium firmly so it would be flat. You can make your own, which has a square shape, which would do this better. But here you can see it, it's relatively flat. And you just plant the bulbs, you know, the way you like them to be positioned. Sorry, the lighting is pretty bad. I'm gonna be back when I'm done this. It's really hard to do it with a single hand. So here you can see how I organized mine. They seemed a little too dried out. I think it's because the room which I kept them through the winter was a bit too warm. But if you keep them in a dark place, they shouldn't start germinating until spring comes. So what I do now, that the tulips are planted, is take some of pure sand and just sprinkle it on top of the bulbs. I was taught to do this in order to preserve the layer in which the tulips are, the proper, like correct ones, are being planted. Because when they grow, you might encounter the problem that they're going to create some seeds and they're going to start germinating on the top. So when you repot your tulips again, you're going to know that your original breed, your original bulbs, are in this layer. And also they're going to be propagating vegetatively, so they're going to be pure clones, no chance of mixing. So you're gonna find them in this pure gravel, I think it's called, layer. So now I'm just gonna fill the top off with the mix. Sorry for the wibbly wobbly camera. You're seeing this raw as it's done properly. And this is about right. You don't want to fill it to the complete top, because then you're gonna have a hard time watering them. Press them down a little bit, and now you would usually add some little rocks on top of this. You can see there's, you know, enough place to put a little layer of rocks in this. And that is done to prevent water from splattering the sand around. Last year I used leca as the top layer, ceramic beads, and they float on top of water, so that was a bad idea. This year I'm having a different experiment. I'm gonna do another pot and show you, you know, one more example, and I think that's gonna be enough. So here is another batch of little tulip bulbs. You can see these have already started germinating. This is bad. They should have already been planted. They start germinating at the very beginning of March, and today is the 15th of March, so they're well on their way. You can see these have a couple of spots. Maybe this is just the damage on the outer coating of the bulb. but you should feel suspicious. But in any case, these are germinating nicely. I think they're going to be okay. Here you can see this one has a little bit of rot and it's shriveled up. Disregard it. So yeah, this one is also completely shriveled up. Disregard it. You know, it's up to you how tedious you want to be, whether you want to keep them all or whether you want to keep only the best. They will create little small growths at the base, like this one, by the base. If you want to, you can keep them. It will take them like 3-4 years to grow up and be blooming. Unfortunately, this is one of those whose label I've lost. But don't worry, I have them all written down somewhere in my notes. And when they're going to be bloom, I'm going to be able to identify them. But yeah, these are one of those type of tulips which have really small bulbs and relatively small flowers. Tulips have a lot of diversity, so they're really fun, you know, when you start collectioning, you know, a lot of different breeds and species. So here I go again. Wibbling, wobbling all over the place. A big scoop of this. Sorry if the lighting isn't really good. This day is horribly cloudy. But I just need to get this done. I just have to get this done. Or I'm gonna lose my plants, which is like not okay. Like, I put a lot of time and effort into having these. I'm not going to let them go, even though if I am one of those lazy youths. This could use a little more. Should be about halfway up. Well, the bigger the bulbs are, the lower you in the pot you want to plant them. These are small, so it won't harm them if they're, you know, relatively high up, because they're gonna have an easier time getting to the surface. Also, I'm a bit hesitant to plant them earlier, although I think some people plant them in like late autumn and like leave them in the cold so they wouldn't germinate inside of the new pots. But this is just me doing my style. I'm a bit hesitant to let them, you know, I'm thinking really hard right now, to plant them earlier, because then they're gonna, last year they really, you know, grew floppy, you know. They grew too fast, they didn't grow strong, and that's because they didn't have enough sunlight. You see this? This is incorrect. You should plant them so they face upright. This is the bad side of planting tulips late, because the stems need to be facing upright, or you have just a higher chance of breaking them off. And that's why you should do things in time. So I'm gonna take you through this batch, and I think you're gonna have the idea correctly. In different countries, I think you should have no problems planting your tulips outside, but in mine it's a really big risk, because we have a lot of parasites who can eat up the little bulbs in the soil. And also it's incredibly moist, and tulips naturally come from semi-deserty areas, you know, from dry areas. So my country is basically a big bog. So you can see how they might not appreciate it that much. These little tiny, if you have really tiny ones, you can just sprinkle them, they should be fine. These ones have not germinated yet, but I can feel they're solid, so I'm gonna plant them anyway. You should prioritize the larger sized bulbs, because, you know, they're gonna bloom faster. But again, if you have a lot of small ones, you can just sprinkle them on top. But this is going to be a very crowded pot when the tulips finally grow. So if you're not a big fan of that, you can just plant them in 2 separate pots. But also I'm a bit short on pots and I'm just winging it right now, so it is going to be done as it is. Again, my problem. Have a couple of small ones. You can just go in the middle. If you have too many spare ones, you can maybe just plant them in your garden. I did it last year. They seem to survive really nicely and they are currently germinating. Again, these are not those typical impressive large tulips. These are more small. But they're special nevertheless. Some of them even have an amazing fragrance. So here they are. So I'm gonna cover them with regular sand. This sand is wet, so that's a bit impractical to work with. Be careful not to squish the new shoots, like I did this morning with my orchid. I have an orchid, it's a hybrid between Brassavola cuculata and Cattleya purpurata. And I woke up this morning and the first thing that I did was go and snap off its new growth. Imagine my face expression. Like, this is one of my prized orchids, like my prides and joys. And I checked out the pot in the morning and I saw a new growth. I removed some of the sphagnum moss to the side and to take a better look, and by doing so I snapped off another new growth which I wasn't expecting because my plant is small, and I snapped it off to the base, so there's literally no chance of anything new growing. Maybe the orchid is going to feel it and, you know, revenge on me by creating another new growth, but at least I have a single one. I'm at that, like, I feel too old to get dramatic and emotionally frustrated over such not critical things. Even if I snapped off both of the new growths, I think my orchid would still manage to create some more. You know, orchids, nature finds a way. So this is basically how I do it. Right now I will leave them beneath this shelter so they would be protected from the rain, and I'm going to water them as they dry out. Right now it's the beginning of spring, so it's quite moist. Maybe I can even leave them outside in the rain, but I want to fertilize them, you know. You should I think I will fertilize mine every time I water them with a weak fertilizer to stimulate the bulbs to grow larger, you know. And you should not let them dry out or they will start going into dormancy too early. So you really have to keep a watchful eye on these. But you can basically check out if they're, you know, drying out by doing this, you know, and your skin will feel if the, you know, ground is dry and stuff. And this pot is incredibly heavy. Can you see it? It's really hard because the sand is moist. So right now it has enough moisture, but once the new shoots are going to begin sprouting, I'm going to start fertilizing them. So you could also use the sprinkler crystalline fertilizer. So I'm slowly continuing the pots, and I wanted to show you how the new roots look like. You can see this is very extended, and this is where the new roots are being created. So okay, here you can see a typical example of a suspicious looking bulb. It is beginning to germinate, but you can see there's this horrible pitting that has a yellow color. So we ain't need none of that. So I was continuing my little repotting session, and this is a species which is called Tulipa arthropoda, I think. So you can hear there are various sizes of bulbs, starting from like medium small, going to big. And they all might give you an impression that this species is small. But look at this. This is an actual mature bulb and it ain't that small. And look at this new growth. It's immense. It's ridiculous. I should have reported them a long time ago. This was the moment of truth. You're probably thinking, what, Lina? There's just nothing there. You see this? Do you see this? Now, this is what is deemed as Tulipa humilis variation alba cerulean coronata, or in other words, it's amazing. Okay, one of them is dead. Okay, you can see this. Yeah, that's a full-on dead bulb. Plop. So these are survivors. There is a bit of mix-up going here. One of them was the actual blue one, and the other one was a different one. And which I don't know. But this hasn't bloomed. This did bloom. So I hope I still have my blue one. Maybe that was the blue one which just, died. Shnyok! Stay tuned for future updates when my tulips are going to start sprouting. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments. Share your own experiences. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'm excited for spring to come. You can expect more of these kind of non-orchid plant related topics. So, ciao.